Ladies and gentlemen, people are seriously underestimating the kind of demand that I believe we're about to see for an XRP ETF. And this is ultimately going to take supply off the table at a time when the bull market is really going to be getting going. October, November, typically the most bullish months for markets. Given where we are in regards to this bull cycle, we're expecting fireworks. And that's going to introduce a lot of retail demand. And we're going to have an institutional gateway via ETFs approved likely by October, not to mention all the kind of XRP strategy companies that we'll do a video on at some point this week. Very interesting. They really are a demand that's introduced to the markets in the same way that MicroStrategy has been for Bitcoin. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the kind of demand that I believe we're going to see for an XRP ETF. What we're going to do is we're going to kick the video off by looking at the current ETF filings, all 90 something of them, and how many of them are XRP or involve XRP, i.e. through a basket product. And I believe that people are really underestimating demand, certainly if CME futures contracts for XRP are anything to go by. CME futures contracts or XRP futures contracts are the fastest ever future contracts to reach $1 billion in open interest. They did that in just 3 months. And that's right. They beat Bitcoin CME futures and Ethereum CME futures in terms of interest, in terms of volume, and are the fastest ever contract to reach that $1 billion in open interest. Now, with XRP ETF just around the corner, if the CME futures for XRP exposure is anything to go by, it's going to be nothing short of fireworks. And as promised, I want to start things off with how many kind of ETFs there are and how many of them are XRP. And I think it's very telling in regards to a large number of these either directly being XRP or involving it, i.e. via baskets. And then I'll give you an update on where specifically the XRP ETFs actually are right now. They're in a kind of phase where they're just waiting for feedback, having resubmitted or readjusted their S1 filing. You know, this is kind of one of the last hurdles to approval. I believe you're going to get approval potentially by October, so sometime this month going into October. That's just in time for the hottest kind of period for the bull cycle that I believe we're in. Whether we continue to follow the 4-year cycle or not, the jury's still out on. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how many of these are actually XRP or involve XRP, i.e. the basket. So let's zoom right in here and start at the top. We can see Hashdex NASDAQ crypto index, which will involve XRP as it's the third largest cryptocurrency. Most of these indexes are going to involve it. So that's one. Then we have Grayscale Digital Large Cap Fund, definitely has XRP in it. We've been looking at that to give us a bullish barometer for the overall space. That's 2. Bitwise Top 10 Crypto Index Fund will have XRP in it. That is 3. If we go down the list, lots of Solana ETFs. If we go down the list, then we have Grayscale's XRP Trust. That's 4. 21 Shares Core XRP Trust. That's 5. Bitwise XRP ETF. That is 6. Canary's XRP ETF. That is 7. Wisdom Tree's XRP Fund. That is 8. CoinShares XRP ETF, that is 9. Franklin Templeton's XRP ETF, that is 10. Then if we continue to proceed down, we have the Grayscale Avalanche Trust conversion into XRP, taking us to 11. We have a number of other baskets. This is from Crane Shares CL Large Cap Crypto ETF. That's 12. Crane Shares Coinbase 50 Index ETF definitely has XRP in it. That's 13. Then we've got Truth Social Crypto Blue Chip ETF. That has XRP in it. That's 14. CoinShares Digital Asset ETF, which is a basket. That's 15. Another Canary American-made crypto ETF basket. That is 16. A ProShares XRP ETF. That's 17. 3 in a row here from ProShares. ProShares Short XRP, 18. ProShares 2X XRP ETF, which is 18. We have the ProShares minus 2X XRP ETF, which is 19. If we continue down here, we can see more XRP ETFs. Rex filing for their Rexon Osprey ETF. That's 20. Tokrium, we have their 2x XRP ETF. That's 21. The minus 2x XRP ETF. That's 22. Then we have Total Capital 2x ETF. That's 23. And that so far is it, ladies and gentlemen. So out of the 92 ETFs that are set to launch, 24 of them are XRP specific or XRP related. So that's nearly 1/4 of all the ETFs that are set to launch are going to have some sort of exposure to XRP. And you've got to think, why are these individuals offering this product? Well, it's because they think they're going to get demand for it. And the fact that XRP is in over 1/4 of these products, I think really says it all. And where the hell are we in regards to all of this? Well, this is another tweet from James Seyfarth. He said, bunch of XRP ETF filings being updated by issuers today, almost certainly due for feedback from the SEC. Good sign, but also mostly expected. This is to do with their S1 filings. This is the kind of last hurdle in the process before approval. We are literally on the cusp of this. Now, I'm lucky enough to speak to some of the largest sort of ETP providers in Europe. And I think the timeline that they're looking at is sort of the end of this month, towards the back end of this month into October. And you will have those ETF approvals. And I don't think people are quite grasping the magnitude of this. We've seen the zealous accumulation of Ethereum via ETFs really explode its price recently. I actually think in terms of at least getting to $10 billion, which Ethereum was third in terms of an ETF to get to in the fastest time, only being beaten by 2 Bitcoin ETFs. I actually think XRP will beat Ethereum to $10 billion, certainly given the context of the market and where we're at and the kind of demand that I think we're going to see. So we are just waiting for feedback from the SEC, and then I think everything goes ahead. I want to dive over to Nate Garcia's Twitter, and he says here, you heard it here first. People are severely underestimating investor demand for spot XRP and Sol ETFs, just like they did with Bitcoin and Ethereum. You see, I've been here before, and I have the receipts. Here he says, we'll go on record. I think spot Bitcoin ETF launches shatter previous records for ETF launches. It won't even be close. He was 100% spot on there. He also said, we'll go out on a limb early and predict spot Ethereum ETFs will be a bigger deal than everybody thinks. Spot Bitcoin ETF demand was also severely underestimated. Whether you like it or not, ETH has 1/3 of the market cap of Bitcoin. Spot Bitcoin ETF category already approaching approximately $10 billion. Basic math, in my opinion. So Ethereum, so he's been very right on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and he's now essentially calling for the same thing for XRP. And we do have some estimates from the likes of JP Morgan. They're expecting within the first sort of 12 months, first sort of 6 to 12 months of an ETF launch for XRP, the lower end with 3% penetration being 4.3 billion and the higher end being 8.4. I actually think they're underestimating them. And I do think that that XRP will actually engulf Ethereum in terms of how long it's going to take to get to that $10 billion assets under management. If we pull this chart up here, you can see these are the fastest ETFs to that $10 billion. IBIT obviously leads. That's BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. Then you've got Fidelity's Bitcoin ETF product, taking only 53 days. We can see for Ethereum to get to $10 billion, the third fastest ETF in history to reach this, it took 251 days. I ultimately think XRP is going to be somewhere between Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I can't see it beating Bitcoin in terms of taking only 34 days to get to that $10 billion, but I can certainly see it beating Ethereum's or BlackRock's Ethereum product, ETH. Certainly given the context of where the markets are at and what the kind of months and period is that they're going into, being October, November, when you're going to see these approvals. I think you've got every reason to expect a real explosive time. And I think one good barometer for demand towards XRP and exposure to it is the CME groups. This is from Nate Garcia once again. He said, CME Group says XRP futures contracts have crossed over $1 billion in open interest. This is the fastest ever contract to do so. It just took over 3 months. That is insane. So that's beating Ethereum's future contracts and Bitcoin's. XRP is in that number one spot. They're already 800 million in futures based on XRP ETFs. I think people might be underestimating demand for spot XRP ETF. I absolutely agree. People aren't ready for this. I mean, you still have people out there. I don't know why people are like this, but we battle them every day that still actually believe XRP is a scam and just love to tell you that that's the case. It's clearly not. And we clearly see a lot of demand. We don't just see demand coming from the CME futures as a good sign. We also see it, and we like to look every Monday. CoinShares' digital report for inflows. XRP, bearing in mind it doesn't even have an ETF in the jurisdiction where 95+% of volume in terms of capital flows into ETFs and exchange traded products. It doesn't even have an ETF in the largest region where it holds the most capital and liquidity. It's still seeing $2.6 billion in assets under management. And that's just with ETPs further afield, not your futures contracts. I think this is a telling sign. In fact, both XRP and Solana for the month-to-date flows have actually engulfed Bitcoin, which I think is telling of where we're perhaps at cyclically. This is going to be interesting because we've seen real demand coming through for XRP. It's been a consistent winner along with Solana outside of Ethereum, which has recently saw a real uptick. I think when you get those ETFs, you're going to see some pretty sensational things. And I honestly believe, like I say, that if XRP is actually going to beat Ethereum in terms of getting to that $10 billion under management, I think it's going to be the second or probably third, because you've got 2 Bitcoin ETFs that got to $10 billion, probably the third fastest. And it'll be one of the ETF providers, ETFs, to reach that $10 billion mark. Do I think BlackRock's going to offer a XRP ETF? I think it's only logical. They've gone down the list so far. Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP is obviously that second in command. And I think they're going to see the demand and sort of volume for it. Now the lawsuit's settled, everything's kind of coming to a head perfectly. So I think to sort of summarize before we dive into some price action, you've got nearly 1/4 of all the ETF filings, of which there's 90 something of them, are giving exposure to XRP. We're at that kind of final stage for ETF approvals. Based on what we're seeing in regards to XRP future contracts on the CME and also inflows in regards to CoinShares' fund tracker, I think people are massively underestimating the kind of demand you're going to see for XRP. We're going to go out and say it's actually going to beat Ethereum in regards to inflows and how long it takes to get to that $10 billion AUM, certainly given the kind of context of where the markets are seasonally. They are cyclically. I think you've got this really explosive end to the year. And XRP ETFs, I think, are going to benefit from that. Just to sort of finish things off on a little bit of price action, because we've not spoken about it in a little while, just stick to the plan, guys. Our price prediction is $19.27. We've been accumulating throughout this period here. Ultimately for this, we think you've only just really started the first leg of the journey. You've just ran into all-time highs. You're pulling back. You will see brighter days ahead of us, guys. That's really it from me. And I think one of those catalysts is the XRP ETFs. We'll do a video later on this week, so do become a subscriber, about XRP strategy companies. That's really it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.